The final away days of the season. It's going to be a big one. Big game, big preview. Come on, let's go.
I remember I walked up into St James's and my hands, everything, my whole body just lit up. I've got goosebumps all over my skin.
I get those goosebumps, baby. I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You's on mine, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype to go that.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC. We are back. The away days big match preview is here. And we're going to get into it all. It's a big weekend for Newcastle United. Going down to Brentford, we know what we need to do, but it's a case of can we do it? And of course, I've got the main man here, Chris Hall, Brandy and Blaze. Way days last time in the house. How you doing, fella? How's things?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. I was just looking for my vape then, but I've lost my vape. So Lisa's gone to look for it. But yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad.
Good man.
You still reeling from Wednesday, or are we firmly sort of moved on from that game? Looking forward.
I'm certainly looking forward still, but I am still reeling. I've got to be honest. I don't hold much hope for this weekend. Being completely honest, whether that's because I don't know. I must admit. The midweek game at Old Trafford, like it completely flummoxed me. Like I just wasn't expecting that at all. And I know people will say Anthony Gordon should have had a penalty. I know that people will say, we're only just getting our players back and stuff like that. But quite honestly, it just wasn't good enough. And I think the players will probably reflect on that. They'll probably be feeling the same way. I mean, we've had a really difficult season, but that was the chance to really, nail our European spot. And finish above Man United, which we've never done in the Premier League before. And that performance did not match up with what was on offer for me. I expected more, particularly when I saw the lineup, when I saw Casemiro, I saw Johnny Evans, the two centre-backs. I saw Bruno Fernandes and Scott McTominay up front. I thought this game's ours here. We've got this for the taking. So deeply disappointed. But we move on. It's done. There's nothing we can do about it. But I'm kind of now looking towards next season because, like I say, I'm not wholly convinced, that we can go to Brentford and get a result. I'll be deadly honest. That's just how I'm feeling at the moment. And obviously, all eyes will be on Man United against Brighton. Hopefully, Brighton can do us a favour. Not that we deserve it, but that's kind of where I am, Pete. Very negative. I know it sounds very negative, but I'm just still reeling from the midweek game. I'm totally in shock that that's the performance that we got, with that fantastic support we had travelling all the way to Old Trafford with the threat of drowning. The fans deserve better, and it was just really disappointing. What are your thoughts, Pete? Am I being really pessimistic, really negative, or are you kind of on the same page, or are you feeling a bit more positive than me?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think most Newcastle United fans, I certainly was. I think we're a little bit flat after that because I think we expected more from the team. I'm not saying we expected to go there and smash them 3 or 4, but we expected to give them a better game. Certainly, at least come away with a point. I think that's the frustration that we lost. I think if we'd have come away with a point, I think we'd have been able to live with that, knowing that kind of guaranteed 7th place was it. But yeah, frustration. But as you know, like I kind of move on from things quite quickly, and now I'm looking ahead to Sunday, and making sure that we go there and do the job. And what better way to segue into our fantastic guest, as in we always do on away days, is we bring the opposition view in. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome back Ali from Besotted Bees podcast. How you doing, Ali?
I'm very well, thank you. Actually, I was really interested in your chat there because my husband's from Trafford, so he's a United fan.
Oh.
And I was at our Player of the Season Awards on Wednesday night, and I got in just as the game was ending. And I went, bloody hell, you're winning. He was sort of like sitting there in shock, really, because having watched the Palace game like a slow motion car crash that he couldn't drag himself away from. He was fully expecting you to go there and hammer them. So, yeah, it was a real surprise for everybody else, I think, as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the thing that's hit us the most, Ali, is that we're in a position now where we've got it all to do. We've got it all to do. And that, we normally start with Brentford, but because we're on the conversation, we might as well stick with this now. Is that now, what have you made of Newcastle United this season? Obviously, Champions League. We got last season. We've had the Champions League. Period before Christmas. Didn't go the way we wanted, but how we've sort of navigated ourselves through the season. What do you make of Newcastle?
I think you've had a similar experience, but in a different way to us, in that your season has been absolutely blighted by injuries. I think, and we've only had to, had one point where we had 9 first team players out. We've had weeks without our entire first choice back 4. We've had both our fullbacks missing for most of the season after you lot broke Rico Henry. And I think, and we've only had to compete on the one front, and we've struggled with our small squad. And despite all the money, it's pretty obvious that your squad is quite small and doesn't have the depth of Liverpool or a City squad. So I think those, from an outsider's point of view, I think you've been really hammered by the number of key injuries you've had, and a lot of them all at once. I think for me, the biggest miss for you is Pope. Massive. I think that's just a massive miss for you. Pope has been a huge miss.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think the whole Newcastle fan base have been having this argument. Chris, I'll come to you on this around Nick Pope. I mentioned on our watch along afterwards, he should have started the game. I was disappointed that he didn't. Some people are saying he's not fit enough. He shouldn't have started. What do you make of what Ali said? That Nick Pope is a huge miss. What do you make of all of that? And do you think not taking away from what we're going to do on the tactics ball, but do you think he should come back in on Sunday?
It's a really interesting point, and I think Ali's absolutely spot on. By the way, like Nick Pope's been a huge miss, and the difficulty for us as well, Ali. And I don't know how commonly known this is outside of Newcastle, but the difficulty, certainly for me, I can't speak on behalf of everybody, but for me, like I do think we need to upgrade the number 1 position anyway. But Nick Pope has been a huge miss. Like the drop in level from Pope to the Bravke has been drastic. Like it's really
what I've seen of Newcastle on TV. Yeah, it's quite a big drop off. And in terms of the way your defence plays in front of him, there's not the confidence that there was. And because he'd be missing Trippier, or Trippier's been out of form, that hasn't helped. But it's noticeable to those of us who aren't as well versed in Newcastle United as you guys.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on, and we there's been rumours today, which I'm sure people may go on to, so I'm not going to spoil it for anyone. But yeah, there's rumours today that we're linked with another number 1, and like I say, it doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't, because I do think it is a position we need to upgrade on in the summer. I think Nick Pope is a very very good shot stopper. He does command his area reasonably well. I think he could be better with his feet, but not that that's the be all end all. But I just feel like if we want to be consistently challenging that top 4, top 5, top 6, I'm not sure Nick Pope going forward is the answer. But to go back to your Pete's original question, for me personally, and I would start him, but I'd have started him against Man United. I'd have started him against Brighton. And this is it sounds really negative, and I'm sorry if I come across so negative, Ali. I'm not normally like this, but I I don't really expect him to start.
He will. He'll start. I'll tell you why he'll start. Because every club who's had a key player out, they've had a key player out for weeks, months. As soon as they get to Brentford, they come back. We've had Maddison, we've had João Pedro, we've had Martinez. They'll come back magically as soon as they get to Brentford. So he'll play.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think if he does play, great. But then on the other hand, it will still feel to me, come 4 o'clock kickoff, it will still feel to me on Sunday at 4 o'clock, we should have done this two games ago. So if anything, I'll be quite frustrated if he starts, even though I'm happy he starts, if that makes sense, because I'll think to myself, well, where was he? So he wasn't fit enough to start against Man United on Wednesday, but he's fit enough to start on the Sunday. And let's be honest, we're talking about a goalkeeper position. This isn't someone who you expect to run 11, 12 kilometers in the game. So it's like, is he comfortable diving? Is he, if he's fit enough for the bench, why is he not in the starting 11? And I just find it really frustrating because, like I say, I think I'll be relieved when he's back in between the posts, but there'll be a side of me that thinks, this is too little, too late, because yes, it will be great if we can get the 3 points or at least equal or better Man United's result at the weekend. But then on the other hand, I will think maybe this wouldn't have been the case if we'd have started him earlier. So,
fair point.
He's had 3 weeks, at least 3 weeks worth of full training. So for me, he must have been doing a number of bits of diving. So and that's the key thing with his shoulder. So you'd be surprised if he wasn't. And then you're asking the question, well, why is he on the bench? We've got Karius, as obviously he's not on his level, but you've got a fully fit goalkeeper there ready to take that sort of backup position on the bench. So for me, he has to start, and I think it's going to be an interesting conversation, I think, with all Newcastle fans over this weekend, waiting until that sort of 3 o'clock where the teams are announced for the game. But look, we'll switch to Brentford, because obviously Brentford, looking at the league, it's not been a great season from the outside looking in. Like, if I put the table up, you might not want to see this, Ali, but I'll put the table up just for everyone else.
It's fine. We're not getting relegated. That's the main thing.
Yeah. So, and this is why it's interesting to find out, because look, from fighting close to European football last season to sort of 16th in the league, just approaching, not quite there, 40 points. Like, how would you assess this season overall? I know you said it was kind of similar, and you've got a similar feeling to Newcastle United, but what have you made of it overall?
It's not what we were expecting. We were expecting, even without Toney for the first half of the season, we were expecting to be able to kick on with Mbeumo and Wissa up front, and sort of like at least be higher mid-table, I think. I don't think we started off pretty well. I mean, what saved us really from getting into real trouble at the back end of the season was the start we had, the first few weeks of the season. But then, the injuries just started mounting up. Obviously, Rico Henry is a crucial player for us, and we lost him to his ACL at your place back in October. That was really early on. We lost Aaron Hickey, our right back, who's actually our cover for Rico at left back. A couple of months later, which was originally only for a few weeks, and we almost all thought he was dead until a couple of weeks ago, because we haven't even seen him. And then we've had, like I said, we have a period of our entire back choices for, but I think where our season really, really started to unravel, we were doing all right. We were coping, we were managing, even with the injuries. When our season really started to unravel was when Mbeumo got injured at the beginning of December at Brighton, and I was out for 3 months, and we really went through a period of struggling. That period of no Mbeumo until Toney came back started to become a real struggle. Now Toney he's lost his form in recent weeks, and I think that goes back to when he was injured in the warm-up against Brighton at home. Everybody thought that Mbeumo was going to start because it was just when he was coming back from injury, and Toney had been withdrawn from the team, and then out he walks, plays the entire match, not been the same player since. I maintain that that injury, he's not fully recovered from that injury. But that at that point, we then got Mbeumo fit, and things have slowly got better from that. We've had, I think, our last 6 games, we've only lost 1. you know, I mean, I know it was in inverted commas only Luton, but we absolutely smashed Luton at Kenilworth Road 5-1, and we were really good that day. We should have smashed United off the park. We had about 500 billion chances and nearly ended up losing the game. But it has been frustrating. We've had to bed in a new keeper, Mark Flecken, who initially, you know, he's brilliant with his feet, even better than Ray is with his feet. But initially, he struggled. I think often when you get keepers who come from the continent, I think their first season, they really struggle with the physicality in the box and commanding his box. But he's improved over the course of the season. I think the turning point for him, ironically, was a game we lost was City at home when he made about 500 saves. And there was at one point in the first half where people were literally turning around and high-fiving each other as he made saves, save after save after save. So yeah, it's been frustrating. It's been at times worrying because there were points when we were seriously looking over our shoulders. And I think we were fortunate that we've had this season with all the injuries at a time in a season where, without wishing to sound too disrespectful, the three clubs who came up were probably over the last few seasons, you know, or for all three of them to be struggling that much in the Premier League. I think we're a little bit lucky there. But, you know, the main thing is, I think we've survived. I think, you know, we're, you know, 13, end up potentially 16 points clear of the bottom three, which is very Brentford. To have us worrying a few weeks ago that we were going to get relegated, then to end up 16 points clear of the bottom three would be classic Brentford. But, you know, we're still here for next season. And what I would say is, you know, none of us when we came up thought we would be here for 4 seasons. I mean, most of us thought we would be going straight back down again. So it's still for a club of our side, it's still an incredible achievement. But we would have liked to watch a little bit more winning football, to be honest, this season. But you know, it's frustrating, and again, I think injuries killed most of our season.
Definitely, it's an interesting situation, Chris, with Brentford. Obviously, as I mentioned to Ali, that they'll fight at the top end of the table. Are you surprised that Brentford have been in the position they have been this season? I know that Ali's mentioned they've had some injuries like we've had, but are you surprised that they are in the position they are, as you can see in the league 16th?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know. Obviously, Toney was a big miss. I think he'd be a miss for any team, to be fair, being out for an extended period of time. And we've kind of felt that with Sandro Tonali, not to the same extent, because obviously Sandro Tonali was a new signing for us, whereas Toney's been a huge player for Brentford. But yeah, I was kind of surprised, and I remember, Pete, it was about 5-6 weeks ago or something, and we brought the league table up, and I think we were all in shock. We were like, "Oh my God, I didn't realise how close Brentford were, you know, to the."
We weren't looking at it at that point.
No. You know, do you know what, though? You've always felt like they had enough, because when you look at that Brentford team, it's certainly a Premier League team. Like, for me, there's no doubt. I think there's some real
everybody's
top players in there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
or when the majority are fit.
Yeah, and I think you know, I think it's right that Brentford stayed up this season. I think it would have been a shame had you gone down. I really like Thomas Frank. I think he's a really, really good manager. And ironically, I think is that a concern for you, Ali, going into the summer, and the fact that Thomas Frank's name's kind of getting bandied about a bit now?
Yeah, he's been linked with Man United a bit, hasn't he? Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be a concern, like it is with, you know, any of our top players. You know, I mean, I think we all realise we're going to lose Toney this summer, and he's only still here because if he hadn't got banned, we would have sold him last summer. You know, we worry about losing Mbeumo obviously as well. But yeah, I mean, if Thomas Frank wasn't on the radar of bigger clubs, then he probably wouldn't be the manager he is, and we probably wouldn't be where we are. So I mean, you know, that is the problem. I would think it would I can't honestly see him going to Manchester United. I really can't, despite the fact who they are, because I just don't think that that's the sort of environment he would want to work in. I may be wrong, I may be proved wrong, who knows. I mean, he will eventually move on, but you know, when these things have happened in the past, you know, we've lost key players, we've lost the likes of Watkins, Ben Rama. When we lost Dean Smith to Villa, we were all what are we going to do now? And there always seems to be, there's always a plan with Brentford, so there will be a succession plan in place. So I think as fans, we just have to trust that when that moment comes, that the club will have a plan in place to deal with it. But yeah, I mean, obviously, until we get to the end of the it's always a concern for us.
Just keeping on the conversation of Ivan Toney. Look, you mentioned he probably would have gone last season if it hadn't been for the ban in place. He has gone on a bit of a dip at the moment. You've mentioned it. He's not scored for quite a while. You've mentioned the injury might be part of that reasoning. You've mentioned you think he's going to go. Is he definitely going to go? And who do you think he's going to go to? Because there's a number of people talking about Ivan Toney and saying, well, because he's not been in the kind of public domain really as he was talked about as he was before. Maybe the teams that were interested in him before, maybe not. So, is he going to leave? Who's he going to go to, in your opinion?
I mean, I'd be surprised if he doesn't, even given that, because top quality, and I do believe at his best he is top quality. He's undoubtedly top quality. Number 9s are difficult to come by. They are difficult to come by. I think Spurs could do with a proper number 9. Okay, they're not going to be playing European football, but they are a bigger club than us. They potentially will have European football the season after. They seem to have a good manager in Postecoglou, who seems to be probably going to take them places. Obviously, the wages will be much higher. Chelsea is another possibility. I think Jackson has huge potential ultimately, but is a very young striker who probably shouldn't be leading the line at the moment in a very young team for Chelsea. I think Chelsea's a possibility. I mean, who knows? It may not happen, but I think the general feeling is that the club will want to sell him this summer and don't want to risk him going on a free next summer. Yeah. Because obviously we should have the Raya money coming in this summer, because Raya's been on loan with an obligation to buy this summer from Arsenal. But
is that going to get done, Ali?
It should do, because our understanding is that it's our besotted sources tell us our understanding is it's an obligation to buy after a certain number of games, and he will undoubtedly have played that certain number of games because he's played practically every game. Yeah. And the fee should come through this summer. I mean, unless what we've been told is not true. I can't see Arsenal backing down on that. So so Raya will go for sure, but. Yeah, I think Toney will go. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. I think it will make stuff difficult. I think it will make things difficult for the club if he doesn't, because we've already bought his replacement. We signed Thiago from Bruges. We signed him in January, but he's coming in July. So he's coming at the end of the season. We continue to pay for Bruges this season. So he's coming in July. So we've already signed his replacement. So it will be quite awkward if he doesn't go, put it that way. And I would be surprised if he doesn't. But, it's Brentford. They won't sell for what they believe isn't the right value. If they're not going to sell him at cut price just to sell him. So, it will be an interesting few weeks. And again, if he goes to the Euros, does well at the Euros, who knows what could happen.
They mentioned, Ali, and it wasn't all that long ago, that if Ivan Toney was to leave, and this was maybe 12, 18 months ago, something like that, and they were bandying around like 80 million, weren't they? They were saying it'd be about 80 million, something like that. How much do you think Brentford will realistically get for Ivan Toney this summer? Will his form play into that figure at all? In the sense that, do you think that? And I suppose the second part of my question is, do you think that there's potential, and I know this is a risky thing to say, but do you think there is a potential that he's kind of been like protecting himself, knowing that a move is coming? Is there a potential that something's already been agreed?
I don't think anything's already been agreed. I think there is potential that, I don't think it's a conscious thing. I think there is definitely a subconscious thing that he does, there may well be a subconscious thing that he doesn't want to get injured before a big move, before the Euros. I don't think it's actually conscious. He's consciously not trying. But I think realistically, I mean, he's only got a year left on his contract. That's the problem for us at this point. He didn't, there was a hope that he might sign an extension because the club had stuck by him through the ban, and obviously, losing out on what we would have got for him last summer.
On that point as well, Ali, sorry to jump in.
No, that's all right.
How did you feel as a Brentford fan or the fan base when Ivan Toney came out? Obviously, he said he was committed and he owed the club, which I thought was great. But then not so long after that, I think it may have even been the next day or a few days later, he was like, yeah, so, but I can't promise that I'm going to stay in January because you never know what's going to happen. Like, how did the fact, because I read that and I thought, well, I'll tell you what I thought. I thought he was a bit,
I
to put
think
it mildly, a bit cheeky.
I think there's a lot of things going on there. I think he doesn't always. He's got new agents, and I think that's been an issue. I think he's very aware. He's probably very aware that the club do plan to sell him and do plan to make money out of him. And to be fair, the club have been quite vocal, and Thomas Frank has been quite vocal about the possibility of selling him. But yeah, I think sometimes he just needs to keep stum. But there have also been interviews where he said things and he's been pushed on things where people are reading stuff into things that he said. I mean, I'm thinking particularly there's an interview with Sky Sports probably about a couple of months ago now, when the interviewer asked him, so what next for Ivan Toney? And he tried to dodge the question not once, not twice, by talking about the Euros. Oh, go to the Euros. But after that, win the Euros. But after that. And then he made what was to me anyway, clearly a joke. He was laughing, say, oh, maybe I'll go to Madrid, get them some sun and Brentford get the money. And this participated all sorts of meltdown, and it's sort of like, I think people are a little bit. I think he doesn't always help himself, for sure. He puts his foot in it, and sometimes he says what he's thinking, and maybe he shouldn't be saying what he's actually thinking. But I also think that he is not helped by the fact that every 5 minutes he is asked about it. I don't think, I think it's difficult when you're asked about it all the time. I can imagine, and I think if he ended up staying, I think he'd give 100% to the club. I don't think he'd sit there and sulk about it for 1 minute.
And what do you think the fee would be? Sorry, Pete.
The fee at this point, it depends, doesn't it? It depends. If you end up with, I don't know, Chelsea and Spurs deciding they both want him, it could be 50 million. But if there's only one potential buyer, 35, 40, I would say probably at this point, just mostly because he's only got a year left on his contract. But we'll see. But Brentford never release the fees anyway. We only have a guide what we think they're getting, but we'll see. It is what it is. I mean, we don't know what the market's going to be like this summer. We don't know who's potentially looking at what, and all sorts of things can change. You would never have thought Havertz was a £65 million player. I mean, United spent 90 million on Anthony. I mean, mad fees get paid for players who aren't nearly as good as Ivan Toney.
See, I think if he'd have had an unbelievable run towards the end of the season where he'd scored a load of goals, I think you would have been well in your rights to be asking for 60, 65 million and getting that sort of money, even with a year left on his contract. But the fact that could be injury related, like as you mentioned, the fact that he's had a run where he's gone 7-8 games without scoring a goal, I think that only feeds into the buyer's perspective that actually he hasn't scored many goals. He hasn't had that fiery end to the season to kind of justify that. And so, I think your assessment of maybe 35, 40, anywhere between maybe 40, 50 is probably a good fee. But I just wanted to kind of like segue on that question around Ivan Toney, because I've heard a number of Brentford fans mention this and actually say, Ivan Toney's leaving, yes, but it would be more of a loss if this man left your club. And you've talked about him before. Just how good is he? Because I have to say he's been linked with Newcastle United.
He's rubbish, absolute rubbish. You don't want to buy him. He's not worth a penny.
And so every Newcastle fan that's watching this, we need to buy Bryan Mbeumo, because the fact that Ali is saying,
learn to pronounce his name first, right? You might get him. Mbeumo.
Okay, right, that's fine. So you pronounce his name correctly, and then tell me just how good he is for Brentford. And actually, to answer the question, would he be a bigger loss to Brentford than Ivan Toney if he was to leave?
I think to lose both of them in the same window would be disastrous is a bit over the top, but would not be great, to say the least. He is very key now to the way we play. I would have said 2 seasons ago, he's gone under the radar with the clubs for quite a long time because he would get through on goal, get his chances, and then miss them. And what he's added to his game, certainly since Toney's ban is he's added goals to his game, and he's far more clinical in front of goal. But he is very, very key to the way we play. The difference is it would have to take at this point in time a huge sum of money for us to sell him, because he's got 3 years on his contract. So if somebody came in with a ridiculous sum of money, 100 million, something that we couldn't turn down, of course we'd sell him. But it at the moment it would take a ridiculous sum of money to take him away. But I mean, we as fans would be devastated to lose Bryan at this point.
Well, what is it about him that makes him such an influential player for your team?
He's got pace. He's got pace. He gets assists. He, like I said, he's very good in front of goal now. He's got a good eye for goal. He's 2-footed. He can play on the left or the right. He can play up front. He can play on the wing. And he generally plays on the wing and cuts in a bit, or plays just behind Toney, or just to one side of Toney. He can play at wing back. He's got so much pace, and he has got such a beautiful touch, and he's just at his best. Bryan in full flow is mesmerising to watch. He is. I would suppose, like for you watching Anthony Gordon at times, it's sort of like wow, you know what I mean. And he's one of those players that can just change the game. He can just change the game if he's on fire. He can just change the game. And he and Whistler have got a good partnership as well. So that would be a huge shame to lose him. I think it would be a big loss for us at this point.
Chris, Bryan Mbeumo, is he a player that you're worried about on Sunday? And how much have you seen of him? What do you make of him as a potential Newcastle United signing?
I think it'd be a very, very good signing. I must admit, when I first done a search on him, because obviously I've watched him play and he has impressed me. And then I was thinking, do we really want to sign like a player approaching his 30s? And then when I looked, I was like, oh my God, he's 23.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, okay, well that changes things, because obviously, you know, he
looks about 50.
I mean, yeah, you know, I people that say I look older as well, so I can't be too critical of Bryan, but no, I mean, I just automatically assumed he was older, but now, and maybe this shouldn't be the case, but when you see, you know, how young he is, you think, oh, so there's definitely potential for him to grow and become even better. So yeah, I think he is a player of interest. And Ali, you may or may not know this, but Newcastle are really, really keen on bringing in a right winger this summer, and bringing in someone with, you know, who's had a really, really good season for Brentford, and someone who I think can only get better. Does make him very appealing. When I've seen him play, he's very direct, as you say, Ali. He's very quick. And he's got a good shot on him as well. So I think he is a player of interest. The only thing for me, I suppose, would be how much Brentford would want for him, because I'm assuming if they sold Ivan Toney, and obviously they'd have the David Raya money as well, Brentford wouldn't really be in a position where they need to sell. So then they could perhaps demand a more premium fee. So I suppose it would depend how much Brentford would want for him.
At this point on his contract, yeah, we would want a lot of money for him. It would have to take. My guess would be at this point in his contract, where I think he's got 3 years left, somebody would have to offer us silly money for us to sell him.
What would silly money look like, do you reckon?
100 million, probably. 100 million, probably, because he's got so long left on his contract and his age.
Wow.
And it's such potential. Because basically, it would have to be 100 million, because we don't want to sell him at the moment.
Yeah.
So
do you genuinely think 100 million would be the fee
for them to say yes to it at this point? Yeah, because it's basically he's not for sale at the moment. It's basically not for sale. So, but there would come a point where you say, well, that's just silly money. Like, you know, like Ajax do with Anthony. It's like, well, that's silly money. We'll sell him. you know, as with any player. But I mean, it's basically our understanding at the moment is he's not for sale in this window this year. You know, come back in a year's time, things might be different, but at the moment he's not for sale. So, you know, like I said, it would have to be silly money, 100 million, for the club to say yes to it. I think at this point. Is he worth that? Is a whole different conversation.
Craig Lee makes a good point. I like that.
Yes. Yeah.
If he's your best player, he's your best player, isn't he? So I do kind of get that. Yeah. Mm.
Well, if Ivan Toney had more years on his contract, he probably would have been worth that sort of amount of money.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it was banded about.
Yeah. Look, I mean, if he hadn't got banned, you know, if we were having this conversation last summer and there wasn't the ban there, then that would definitely have been bandied about for sure.
Yeah.
David Cook says he prefers Elise for 60 million. Welcome to the transfer.
Oh,
window.
what a player, Elise! What a player! But again, I don't think Palace. With David Cook, with all due respect, I don't think Palace. I think Elise's got quite a long time on his contract as well. I think it would take silly money for Palace to sell Elise at this point as
He's
well.
got a release clause though. I think he
Oh,
has.
has he? I wasn't aware of that. Oh, well, there you go.
That's the kicker. That's the kicker. But
Brian doesn't have a release clause.
As a Newcastle fan, welcome to the transfer window, David. This is what it's going to be about, because we're going to be looking for good players in the window. We're linked with a lot of players. Not all
you
of
have
them
restraints with financial fair play though, as well, even with all your tons of money. I think there's some restraints with your financial fair play.
We are. I think mostly up until the end of June, when it then the new financial 3-year period. Whether we're going to stick to that 3-year period with all the changes that might happen with PSR, that there's rumored to be kind of voting on in June, remains to be seen. But for at least the next year, PSR will continue, and it will be a new 3-year cycle. So when we get past June, I think we'll be in a position to be able to buy. And then you've got the big question of Bruno Guimaraes and the 100 million buyout clause, which rumours swirling around today that Man City are close to an agreement of salary, wages.
That's a huge loss, isn't it?
And it would be a huge loss. Speaking to a Man City fan earlier on today, who apparently is close to the club, he was mentioning that they've seemingly agreed sort of wages with Man City. Bruno's camp have, but he's still torn on whether to leave. And so this is going to be a big 4 weeks for Newcastle United when we hit sort of like June, or the last week of May next week. So yeah, it's going to be a tough one. But equally, that 100 million could allow us to really kind of be able to spend and probably see more of a Newcastle United of what most people expected us to be, in terms of being able to spend a little bit more money to get better players in. So it could well be a good thing. But look, it's a case of definitely a case of wait and see. But with Bryan Mbeumo, I'm just looking at his stats here, like his standard goals, assist stats are up there right at the top of the percentile. I'm looking as well, his passing and his shooting are top level ratings. And as well as this, surprisingly, his aerial ability, he's not the tallest of players, but his aerial ability, is right up there. It's nearly a 90% percentile, which is crazy for a player of his height. He's really got the whole package, and we are looking for a right winger. I'm not going to lie, Ali. So
you're not having him. Not having him. We'll give you time if you're not having Brian.
Let's wait and see.
You got Isak. You don't need him.
Yeah, we do definitely need a right winger. If Miggy's going to be, but let's not. We do this, Chris, all the time, don't we? We always kind of buy opposition,
buy everybody else's players
all the time. So let's not do that. But no, it's going to be really interesting. Ivan Toney fit, ready for Sunday?
Well, in theory, yes. In theory, he's fit. As far as we know, he's fit. Like I said, whether he is actually 100% fit, I would be sure. But yeah, as far as we know, yes. As far as we know, apart from the long-term injuries, there's no new injury concerns.
Okay, interesting. Before we get to the tactics ball, we're going to look at look at the match in a bit more detail, and of course, the way we do that is looking at some stats.
Good evening, all.
Magic appears. Welcome back to Away Days. Double O Stato, Keith Roll. How are you doing? It's the final Away Days of the season. what stats have you got for us this evening?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks. I hope everybody's well. Got quite a few stats tonight. I've got some head-to-heads, got some manager stats, a few about the players, and then the general stats at the end. I've got some stats about both clubs' seasons overall as well to round off on. So Newcastle's all-time record in this fixture, not many games, just played 17 times, won 12, drawn 1, and lost 4. And Newcastle are unbeaten in their last 9 league meetings with Brentford, going back to 92-93 season. And as well, I think the last time that Newcastle got beat off Brentford was the Carabao Cup quarter-final about 4 years ago. And they hadn't lost a league game at Brentford since 1948 when they'd lost that game. Overall as well, they've scored more goals in this fixture, scoring 37 to Brentford's 22. Moving on to the managers, Eddie Howe's managerial record against Brentford's a good one. 6 wins, 2 draws and 2 defeats in 10 games. Thomas Frank, his record against Newcastle, he's managed 6 games, 1 win, 1 draw and 4 defeats. However, his side are unbeaten in their last 5 home league matches, 1 win and 4 draws. And they're looking to keep as well 4 consecutive home clean sheets as well in the Premier League as well. So they're on a bit of a run in that sense. And his next league victory will also be his 100th as Brentford manager as well. Moving on to the players, Anthony Gordon, he's only the 4th Newcastle player to score home and away goals against Man United when he scored the other night. And Bryan Mbeumo, he could make his 200th appearance for Brentford, and it was his 50th goal last week as well. I think you've just been speaking about Bryan Mbeumo as well. So he's one to watch out for, certainly for Newcastle. And Ivan Toney, now, again, it always worries me, this sort of stat, but he's failed to score and he's passed 11 league games. And he's never gone 12 matches without a goal. I always remember Shearer might have that run as well back in the day, similar run, and he would all of a sudden score an avalanche of goals. Sean Longstaff, 60% of his goals in the Premier League have been scored this season as well. So he's had a hell of a run. 6 out of 10 of his goals have been this season. And as well, and he's also scored in back-to-back appearances for Newcastle for the first time as well recently as well. So he's doing quite well, is Sean Longstaff. And Newcastle have never lost a Premier League match when Longstaff scored as well. Some general stats to round off with. Newcastle have lost 4 of their last 6 away games. And as well, the run that they've had as well out of all of the away games, 11 league away defeats this season. It's the 4th highest in the Premier League, behind Sheffield United, Luton and Brentford. So Sheffield United 15, Luton with 13 and Brentford with 12. So haven't been good at all really this season, a bit of a drop off. But on the upside, Newcastle have scored 81 Premier League goals this season, and that's the most that they've scored in a 38 match season. And also, however, they are the first team that have scored 80 goals or over and conceded at least 60 goals in a 38 match campaign. And that's going back to 19, 14, 15. So a bit topsy-turvy there, certainly for Newcastle. Great going forward. And at the back, that's sort of quite a worrying stat. And also as well, having won just one of their first 10 away games in the season with 2 draws and 7 defeats. They've won 4 of their past 8. away from home. So a bit of a mixed bag, but their away form was getting better, but it's just tapered off again recently. They're only one goal equaling the Premier League record of 15 goals scored by substitutes, though. So again, maybe Newcastle could get a substitute well on and grab another goal at the weekend when they need it most. I thought I'd look a little bit as well in terms of both clubs' positions, in terms of losing games from either winning or positions where they've been drawn games as well. So Newcastle have now lost 21 points from games this season that they were either winning or drawn in 9 games. That's happened this season. And that compares to last season where they dropped only 11 from 5 league games last season. And Brentford, they've dropped the league high. So 30 points they've dropped from winning positions this season.
We'd be in the Champions League.
It's just 3, exactly. It's just 3. It's just 3 short of the Premier League record. Believe it or not, Chelsea, way back in 95, 96, Wimbledon, 99 to 2000. I think that was the year Wimbledon got relegated, and also Tottenham, surprisingly, in 2007-8 season. And that rounds off the stats there.
Great stats as always, Keith. Thank you for all your stats this season. Superb as ever. Look forward to more of those stats next season, that's for sure. But no, brilliant stuff as ever. And very, very interesting stats. Some that we need to keep an eye on. Looking forward to the game on Sunday. But look, we're going to switch to the tactics board. Ali, what we normally do is allow the away the away team on this channel to go first. You are the home team, of course, on Sunday. And so what is likely to be your starting lineup in your opinion?
Flecken in goal.
Okay.
And then it will be now Collins has got injured, so it will probably be Rurs left at right back.
Who did you say? Who was it?
Rurs left. Rasmussen, I think you've got him as.
Yeah.
And then if Collins is injured, it will be Aya and Pinnock in the centre. Pinnock will be on the left.
Yeah. Okay.
And it will be Reguilon at left back.
Yeah, been a good addition for you.
It has, yeah. I'll be sorry to give him back, to be honest. He's been brilliant for us, actually. And then it will be Norgard, Damsgaard, and probably Janelt in the midfield. Although Jensen can come in for one of them, but
how will they? So Norgard.
If it's Norgard, Damsgaard, and Janelt, Norgard will sit in the holding role.
Okay.
And yeah, something like that. And then it will be Mbeumo. It'll be Mbeumo, Toney, and will it be Whistle? Will it be KLP? I think it'll probably be Whistle. I think it'll be Mbeumo, Toney, and Whistle up front.
Okay. Will it look a little bit like that? 4-3-3?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I have to say, Ethan Pinnock, I think he's come back into the team recently from injury. Yeah. He is, in my opinion, a very underrated centre back. I think he's been fantastic for you guys. I always remember last season, I think he scored an own goal. I think when we beat you at St James's Park, and I think he got a little bit of stick for that. But I think since then he's really come in and shone for Brentford and played well. Is he one of your better players in the team?
100%. He is, like you say, he's one of the. I think he's one of the most underrated centre halves of the Premier League by distance. Yeah. He's just been voted the Fans Player of the Year for this season, which, considering he spent a reasonable amount of that this season injured, it's huge. I mean, he is just so calm at the back. He wins most things in the air. I mean, and you can just when he's not there, our defence is nowhere near as good without him there. He is hugely underrated. Wins most everything in the air. Has got a good turn of pace. Times a tackle well. Pops up with goals at the opposite end. You know, I cannot speak highly enough of him. He's he is easily one of our best players, and thankfully goes completely under the radar. It's just no interest in him from other clubs at all. And like I said, one of the most underrated centre halves in the Premier League. And I think if you look at his stats, he is right up there with the likes of not far behind the likes of Saliba in terms of his stats. He is just phenomenal. We absolutely love him at Brentford. Absolutely love him.
Brilliant stuff. Definitely a few to keep an eye out for. That front line looks very, very dangerous. That's for sure. A lot of pace, a lot of quality, and goals as well to be aware of in our defensive line. Chris, I'll come to you. Newcastle United. Questions is what I'm going to say to you. What do you think your lineup will, or what the lineup will look like on Sunday at 3:00?
So by the way, I think it's 4:00. I think all the games kick off at 4:00 on Sunday.
They do, but the teams will be announced.
Oh, the team news, yeah, of course, yeah. Sorry, yeah. So my team would look a lot different, but I'm going to pick the team that I think Eddie Howe's going to pick.
Okay.
So, and that's going to start with, I'm waiting for the groan, Martin Dubravka in goal.
Hooray!
I'm glad somebody's happy, Ali.
And as always, Keith can critique me, and if you and Keith want to swap that, please feel free to. And I'm not going to complain because I would be more than happy to see Nick Pope in goal, but I just think he's going to see Martin Dubravka throughout now. But anyway, I think there'll be one change to this team from the team that played Man United, and you'll find out who that is. So left back will be Lewis Hall.
Yeah. Brilliant again on Wednesday. Old Trafford. Super.
Or another player who played well at Old Trafford, I think Dan Burn will be playing left centre back.
Definitely.
Right centre back, I believe, will be Fabian Schär. He came on. In fact, no, I'm making two subs because Fabian Schär didn't start the game, did he? So yeah, two changes I'm making. So yeah, I think Fabian Schär will start at centre back, and right back, I believe it'll be Kieran Trippier.
Okay. Needs to have a better game. He was poor, really poor against Man United. Surprisingly poor, I would say. Worst player in the team on Wednesday. So he needs a big performance. But midfield.
Yeah. So I think Bruno will be holding.
Potentially his last game for Newcastle United. Don't want to have to say it.
I hope not. But no, I hope not. But it is what it is, I suppose. It is what it is. On the right of the midfield, I think it will be Sean Longstaff.
Yeah, okay.
And this is my other change. I think Joe Linton's going to start on the left of the midfield.
Has to. Oh my God. The joy will be on my face when that team loses and that's including Joe Linton in that team. I'll be so much more confident. Not going to lie.
1,000,000%, mate. 1,000,000%. This one is a bit more hopeful because I haven't listened to the presser. But I hope and I think that, I think he's got to start him. If you want to win the game, I think he's got to start him, even if he's not 100%. And I think on the left, it'll be Anthony Gordon.
Yeah.
Through the middle will be Alexander Isak. I'm still not convinced, by the way, that Callum Wilson's going to be on that bench. I really am not, because we've been promised this for the last two games and it's not happened. So I'm not holding my breath for that, if I'm honest. Unless, of course, he wants to give him a little swan song so he can come on in the last 5 minutes and wave the fans off. Who knows? And then on the right of the midfield, I think it'll be Jacob Murphy again. Again, Miggy Almiron will be on the bench, and I think Miggy will come on again, possibly to wave goodbye to the fans because it'll be his last game for Newcastle. But that is my 11. I don't know how far Keith thinks I am from it, or whether Keith would make any changes based on what Eddie Howe would think.
Going to be a lot of farewells on Sunday, isn't there? For a few.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there's got to be some changes, separate conversation, but I think there's going to be some changes needed in the summer. I think hopefully there will be to get Newcastle to the next level. But in answer to your question, Chris, the main one is the number one. That's got to change for me. If your best player's fit, then for that last game of the season, I'd much prefer to see Pope there.
He's been fit for 3 games though, apparently, Keith, because he's been on the bench.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we've got to do that. It might have been different. You never know. We'll never know now, but it could have been different in the last couple of games if we'd rolled that dice. But I agree with you, Chris. As much as we would like to see Pope there, I think he's not going to change that now. If anything, he might play him in the Australia games because there isn't as much riding on those in Howe's mind. It would be less of a calculated risk, wouldn't it? I think Barnes will hopefully play a part at some stage of the game as well, maybe in the sub in the second half. We know what Barnes can do from the bench. There's that danger from the bench, the eye for a goal, so maybe he comes on if we need something in the second half.
Oh dear. Okay. I'm gonna.
What are you thinking, Pete? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna make a couple of changes. To be fair, we made the obvious one. Nick Pope has to start for me. I actually think Nick Pope's got a chance of being called up for England for the Euros. Yeah, because the one that replaced him was Sam Johnson, but he's on a long-term injury. I don't think he's going to be fit for the Euros. So, look, I think Pickford and Ramsdale are your natural two. I'm not sure there's a convincing third choice option there for England, and they normally take 3 goalkeepers. And I think if Pope can prove his fitness, I think they'll take him, even if he's not likely to play. I think they'll just take him just because of his experience and because
I'd agree with that. I'd 100% agree with you on that. Yeah,
because he's a good goalkeeper, and I think I understand your points. I think it might be Keith. You mentioned it about potentially playing in Australia, but actually, Gareth Southgate is going to want to see him play in a competitive game, and I think playing him in this game, I genuinely feel that Eddie Howe had earmarked Nick Pope to play in this game regardless. I do feel that. I could be wrong 3:00 Sunday, but I think they'd earmarked him in that, and I think they potentially earmarked him into this game because they thought European football would be sewn up by now, but it's not. But I still think they need to play him, and I still think he needs to prove his fitness. This is potentially the last tournament that Nick Pope might play in, so he's going to want to do everything he can to play in this tournament. And so I do think he'll play. I think you're absolutely right. Fabian Schär has to come in. He's proved his fitness by coming off the bench against Man United. We are a better team for having Fabian Schär in there, and he needs to play. It's as simple as that. Big question marks about Trippier, but technically he is far better than Kraft. And let's be honest, Kieran Trippier's got something to prove because he hasn't played well since he come back. And you know he came off the bench against Brighton, didn't really do much, or being not given a lot of time to do so. Wasn't good against Man United. He wants to go to the Euros. Gareth Southgate's going to be watching him. He's going to need a good game on Sunday.
Can I ask you guys a question about Trippier? Because from the outside, it looks like there's been a massive drop-off for Kieran Trippier this season compared to where he was last season. I mean, I know he's suffered a couple of injuries, but what do you put that down to? Because even when he's been in the team, he's not been performing at the level he was last season.
Go on, boys. What do you think, Kieran Trippier?
I wonder. Well, apparently, Ali, he has a few personal issues midway through the season. You're probably recalling, and it was right, that little run of games. I think it was Everton, then it was Tottenham, and he was having howlers. I suppose so. You can maybe forgive him for that period and say that, obviously, if he had personal issues, perhaps that played a factor. But being genuinely honest, I think this year he turns 34. Yeah. And I just wonder whether these injuries are catching up with him and he's struggling to really find that form. That's certainly what I put it down to. I mean, he's a top professional and he's a fantastic player on his day. I just feel like maybe he's struggling to get back up to speed, back up to pace. I mean, that where he kept Kobe Manu on side, that's just not like Kieran Trippier. That he just didn't. It was really, really poor, and he will have watched that back and probably been mortified. Like that. That's how bad it was. Because he clearly, the defence were playing an offside trap, and he just wasn't. Yeah, he just didn't get the script. And he just left Kobe Manu. And I think Kobe Manu himself was absolutely shocked that he had all the time to receive the ball, stop, look up, and then decide which side to put it from Dubravka. It was really, really, really poor. But yeah, ultimately, I genuinely, I think age is catching up to him, if I'm honest.
Any opinions, Keith?
I think Chris Hall's just nailed it on the head, really. I mean, you can't go forever, can you? In terms of it happens to so many of the players. All of a sudden, it just catches up with them, and I think that's the key is when you're picking up the injuries. We've seen it with Wilson, even in terms of the other side of the pitch, longer to recover, and when you do get back, you don't quite have the edge like you used to.
I think the goal, the Kobe Manu goal, was a classic example of what's happened with Kieran Trippier. Technically, he's still superb, like very, very good. Like he can, his ability to find a pass, his ability to deliver is been off since he's come back in. But generally, he's got 11, 12 assists this season, so it's still very, very good to get that amount of assists in one season. But the goal signified everything wrong with Kieran Trippier at this moment in time. Is that Kieran Trippier has lost a yard of pace. He was never the fastest anyway. And I think the fact that he's realised that he's lost a yard of pace from what he had before means that what he's doing now is dropping deeper in these type of positions. And that goal was perfect. Example of that is that he's dropped deeper to try and get ahead of the player, but he had two players, one in front, one behind, and he got caught up, whereas he should have stepped up, being the experienced player he did, but he doesn't trust his pace anymore to get back in, and this is part of the issue now. And I think long term it is going to be an issue for Newcastle United, because we've got Tino Livramento, who has bags of pace, that is able to cover himself and defend really, really well. He's a good defender, but he's got pace to back it up. And so we've seen we've almost seen the future, boys. Chris, Keith, we've seen the future in Tino Livramento of what an active, youthful, and pacey fullback can do. And then you bring Kieran Trippier in, and you see these similar problems that have been happening all season start to manifest again. And that for me is the biggest issue with Kieran Trippier. And I do think this is his last tournament for England if he gets selected. And I think he's going to do whatever he can to get into that. So I do expect a good performance on Sunday purely for that reason. But the summer's up for me. The summer's up in the air for me. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kieran Trippier move on. I genuinely wouldn't.
There was the opportunity in January as well, wasn't there, Pete, as well, with Bayern. It at 1 minute in time, it looked like it was a done deal, didn't it? It's the fee and everything, but
I'll be deadly honest. I said this back in January, boys. Like, for me, I do think we missed an opportunity not selling Kieran Trippier in the January transfer window. That sounds crazy, and I know, Ian McKenna, Pete, you won't be able to see this on the screen, but Ian McKenna's saying Trippier's got 11 assists before everyone packs him off to the old people's home, and then he says at one point he had the most assists in Europe. Yeah, Ian, there's no doubt, mate. Kieran Trippier, technically.
No doubt about it. He had a brilliant start of the season, didn't he, Chris? Remember around about the game with Sheffield United, all the assists around there. I think 7 or so were in the early part of the season. He had a brilliant start before. I think those games came around about back end of November, early December, didn't they, against Chelsea?
Yeah. He's not a bad player, and I'm not saying overnight it's turned and Kieran Trippier is no good and Newcastle needs a better player. I'm not saying that, but without being funny, if you're getting a £13 million offer for a 33-year-old who's soon to turn 34, these days it's sad. But you're looking at where you get your value. Ian, you'll remember way back when Bobby Dobson sold Gary Speed for 500 grand because he said getting 500 grand for a player at that age was fantastic. And then Gary Speed went on and played another 2 or 3 years at Bolton, and he was absolutely brilliant. So sometimes it can bite you on the bum. But this day and age, when we're all worried about PSR, we're all worried about FFP, 30 million's a good figure. And like I say, in the summer, if Kieran Trippier is to go, I can guarantee you it's going to be nowhere near 13 million. Nowhere near.
Yeah, definitely. Interesting. Very, very interesting. The other change I'm making is right wing. and it goes something like this. If I'm look,
I nearly said that. I did nearly say that.
Mate, we talked about it off air after the watch along. We've got to go for it. We've
Yeah.
got to go for it. Harvey Barnes, and I need to stress this for anybody that's watching this channel and this show. Harvey Barnes is not an impact player. He's had impact moments for Newcastle United this season, but he's not an impact player. We cannot rely on him long term to just come off the bench and make the difference. He needs minutes. He needs games to prove himself. And European football is critical. It's crucial for Harvey Barnes next season because, let's face it, Anthony Gordon is the first choice left winger all day, every day. He's proven it this season. But Harvey Barnes is a very, very good left winger that will score probably just as many goals as Gordon if they both stay fit in a season. And he's going to need to be playing in Europe to guarantee himself getting first team football every week, unless we do this. And I think we're going to buy right winger. So we're not going to do this a lot next season. Harvey Barnes needs to start, and we need to go at this team with our best attacking wingers. For me, this is how we start the game. With this actual team, this is how we start the game. I think Callum Wilson will be fit, albeit I know, Chris, you don't think he might be. I think this will be his last game for Newcastle. I think he's got the potential coming off the bench. You've got the Miggy, you've got Murphy, you've got the likes of Elliot Anderson, you've got the likes of Kraft to come off the bench as well. You've got a number of options there to come off the bench and change the game. So for me, this is what I think it will be the starting lineup, and I hope it's the starting lineup because it's one game, boys. It's one game. When we go to Australia, we can play some of the other players. We can play some of the youth players, the likes of Alex Murphy and one or two others in that game to give them a few minutes here and there. This is the game that makes the difference. It all ends with this, and we need to get the points on the board. So for me, this is the starting lineup that I think that Newcastle United need to start with. And I think if we start with this, we've got a really good chance of getting the points. But we'll see. Look, Ali, any thoughts about this?
I think looking at your switch there, I'm just looking at Gordon against Reguilon and thinking Reguilon will get sent off.
Yeah.
He'll have one of his moments and get sent off. So yeah, I'm not happy with that. But a lot of pace if that's your lineup. A lot of pace up front. Reguilon and Aya have both got pace, but yeah, Isak is the worry. Big worry for us. Gordon. I think Pinnock will be tasked with watching Isak. Gordon is a big ask for anybody, and I would probably be more comfortable if we had Collins in the middle. If Collins was fit and Aya could play it right back and take on Gordon, because I do think Gordon will probably, on the balance probability, start on the left because Aya's got the pace. But yeah, your front three is that you've got there is quite frightening actually. But you know, we've been fairly solid recently defensively, so you know, and with both Norgard and Jan out in midfield, I think we'll hopefully will at least be difficult to break down. I mean, we just need to beat you guys. We haven't beaten you forever. I think we're well overdue a win. So yeah, but you know, it's a good team. You're putting a good team out, but you know, we're not far off full strength there. So you know, and on our day at full strength, we're a match for anybody.
Definitely, it's going to be an interesting one, guys.
I think there'll be lots of goals. Which probably means that they're 0-0.
Yeah.
Lots of goals if Dubravka's in between the sticks, certainly.
Keith, on that point, I'm going to turn tax board off because I don't want to see it. I don't want Dubravka.
I do.
I could just imagine 3:00 Sunday, Ali just punching the air, seeing Dubravka starting the game, and
then he'll probably he'll be man of the match performance and save like 50 goals.
I'm quite happy to take my medicine if he does get us the win or pull off something amazing. But I genuinely can't see it. I really can't. But I know there's a few questions in there for Ali and a few questions in general. So we'll throw a few of them out there, and then we'll get predictions and see out the show. So Chris, what is there for us? I know Alan's been in the chat with some interesting opinions. And there's quite an interesting question there. I don't know if you want to go to that.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. I'm just before I do, big massive thank you to Munch, who's become a YouTube member. So he's become a loads of ultra. Thank you very much, Munch. Much appreciated, mate. But yeah, the interesting question, Pete. I did spot you'd starred it from Alan Thompson, and he asks you, Alison, first one, Wilson for Toney?
God, no. I'm sorry. I know you guys love Wilson, but he's not in. Both players on form. He's not in the same class. I would say they're a very different type of centre forward, and I would also say that the Qatar World Cup, the form Toney was in, he should have gone into place of Wilson. At the moment, I think it's probably if he takes 3 centre forwards, it's probably Solanke. But I would not swap Toney for Wilson. No, sorry, guys. I know that probably guarantees Wilson comes on and scores a hat trick or something on Sunday. But there you go.
So you wouldn't, but just say, for example, Newcastle came in for a bid for Ivan Toney and put Wilson as part of the deal. Do you think that's something?
No, not with his age. No, we wouldn't. I don't think we'd be interested in that. Just because what is he? 31, 32 now.
Just
yeah, he's so injury prone. I think it's I don't think that he does. He is, by the way, when he's joking. I mean, he's not in Aaron Hickey's class, but he's injury prone. Yeah, but I think just for those reasons, I think fit and on form, he's a great striker. But would I swap him for Toney? No.
But I'm asking you, would the club consider that?
No, I don't think they would. No, I don't think they would. Solely because of his age and his injury record.
You can see what I'm doing.
We're really good at injuring players as it is. We don't need somebody who's going to come and get injured all by himself.
You can see what I'm doing here. I'm trying to like entice the deal on. I'm trying to encourage it potentially.
One of the best goal scoring records, hasn't he, for a player goals per minute ratio? Callum Wilson's right up there. I think he's second this season.
Yeah. FX Pro's trying to persuade Ali as well. He's saying, would you take Wilson 15, 20 million? This is the ballpark figure we're looking for, Ali, whether or not Newcastle get it.
Because for the simple reason that at the moment we've already got Whistler who plays, who I think for me is at his best when he plays in the middle anyway. And we've already signed we've got a pre-contract to sign Thiago from Bruges. So I don't think we're on the lookout for another centre forward anyway.
Yeah, I love this one. Just sorry to interrupt, Chris. I love this one, William Smith. Callum Wilson has the hamstrings of an 80-year-old.
Callum Wilson got his hamstrings in the same place as Aaron Hickey. Trust me.
If their hamstrings are bad, I'm fearful what mine are. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but you're not a professional athlete, so you're fine.
Yeah, that's true.
One of our regular chatterers, Ali Foxy, knows a lot about European football, and he said Brentford have already got the replacement for Toney, Igor Thiago from Bruges. He's been on fire for them. Interesting to see how he adjusts to the Premier League. Is Alisson and the Brentford fans excited about his arrival?
Yeah, we are. I mean, we're a little bit concerned because he picked up an injury in his last game. And there was a bit of a concern that it might be an ACL, but it's a medial and it's not serious, so he should be fit for the start of the season. Yeah, we're very excited about him. He looks like a really good signing. He's got pace, he's got power. He's been playing really well recently for Bruges. He's got that European experience. He's young, but yeah, I think with all players, especially young players, especially coming from the continent, it will take him a while to adjust to the Premier League. And I don't. The worry for me is, I think with any fan base, is some people just don't have the patience. They're going to expect him to hit the ground running, and he may not hit the ground running. I mean, I don't think initially at the start of the season, I don't think he'll be starting. I think Whistle will start through the middle, and it will be a few games before we see Thiago starting. But yeah, the potential is huge. I think he's an absolute beast, and he's Brazilian, so it's got to be something good there, isn't there?
Of course. We know all about Brazilians. We do.
You do.
We love our Brazilian central midfielders, but we'd love a Brazilian striker as well. We would. So next question, and these are very Toney related, so I do apologise, Ali, but obviously with the link to Newcastle, you can probably understand why. And this is an interesting question, because, well, it is for me anyway, because it'll be interesting to see your thoughts on it. But FX Pro says, will Toney go to the Euros this summer after this form?
This is an interesting one. There is a theory. There is a theory amongst some Brentford fans that Toney is playing within himself because he's already been told by Southgate off the back of his performance when he started and scored for England that he's going, and he's been told not to get injured. So there is that theory. I think if you, at the moment, obviously Kane goes, Watkins has to go with the form he's in. But I think with the 26, now being 26 in the squads, I think there will be another striker. And I think the question is it Solanke or is it Toney? And I don't think Southgate, being the cautious type of manager he is, will suddenly go for a player that he's for the Euros that he's not called up before. Despite when we played Bournemouth last weekend, and I was really impressed by Solanke, I have to say. But I think he will go. When he should have gone to a major tournament was the World Cup, when he was in really good form, and ironically he may well end up going to this tournament when he's not in anywhere near the form that he was for that tournament. But we shall see. I think he probably does go just because of how Southgate is. But we'll see. Like I say, Kane and Watkins for me are nailed on. And then if there is a third striker position, what does he take a third striker, or does he take another winger that you can play through the middle? Does Rashford, despite being out of form, go because he could play wide or he could play through the middle?
Yeah. I think as well with Ivan Toney, what gives him the edge is the fact that he's an absolutely fantastic penalty taker.
Yeah, if you go to
and free kick taker if you need it.
And if it goes to a shootout, and you've got Kane, who generally is also very reliable. I mean, and you've got Kane and Toney as two of your penalty takers. I think you've got a good chance, haven't you?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. David Cook puts this in, and I don't think this is correct, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because maybe Pete Keefe or Ali can kind of confirm it. But David Cook says we are due 5 million when Toney gets sold, but surely that can't be the case. Because we sold him to Peterborough, and then Brentford bought him from Peterborough.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty certain that is not the case. I know there are some add-ons for Peterborough.
Yeah.
But certainly DMAC along the way has sort of like rubbished various ones about this, that, and the other. I think there would be some payment due to Peterborough, as there was a payment due to Exeter when Watkins went to Villa. But I'm pretty certain there's nothing that goes as far back as Newcastle. But I couldn't swear to it.
He's put here it's due part of Peterborough's cut.
I honestly don't know. Honestly don't know then.
Well, that's interesting.
Sorry. No.
So it might be because of what Peterborough agreed with Newcastle, but
maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, Peterborough we did sell him for the cut price, didn't we? He did go for a very little price, and I get that we would have got a cut of Peterborough selling him to you, but then I don't know. But yeah, interesting. No. If true, interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting if true.
David Cook also asks a question for Ali. My pal is a Hull fan and raved about Lewis Potter. Do you rate him?
Yeah, I love KLP. He's had quite a few injuries, and he's only really started to show his true potential. He may well start. I think it's a toss-up. He started against Bournemouth last weekend ahead of Whistler, so Whistler may start on the bench and come on as an impact sub. But KLP, he's got pace. He likes to run at players. He'll drive at players. The only thing at the moment that he needs to add is goals. But yeah, huge potential. I think he's one of those players that divides the fan base a little bit. But personally, I love him. I think he's great.
Good. Now, this is a really important question, and we're going back to Brazil again here, Ali. This is an important question, and we asked one of a journalist who came on, Graham Bailey. He came on recently, and he gave us his thoughts, and a lot of Newcastle fans weren't very happy with these thoughts. So this is going to be a running theme, although it may end this season, but we'll see. We may go into next season. But FX Pro says, if you had the choice, would you be picking Joe Linton or Conor Gallagher?
Oh,
Be careful, Ali.
ooh. I think it's got to be Joe Linton. Oh, no, I think it has to be Joe Linton. Yeah, 100%. It's for Joe Linton. Although I do like Gallagher. I think Gallagher's another player who's hugely underrated. But yeah, Joe Linton.
Yeah, and Geordie Tune for Life's absolutely correct. I mean, Geordie Tune for Life says Ali definitely knows her stuff, and after the answer that
Thank
you've
you
given
very
there,
much.
Ali, there's no doubt. There's no doubt now after that answer. Question for Pete and Keith. I did see it. Where's it gone? Where's it gone? Where's it gone? Where's it gone? Oh, hang on. Where's it gone? Has it disappeared? Maybe I clicked off it. Well, this one's for you, Keith, and this is off Craig Lee. Do we now hold the record for the most different goal scorers in a Premier League season? Did Hall put us one more than Man U? So I apologies for putting you on the spot, Keith, but I just wondered if you knew the answers to that one.
Does that apply to this season, or is it? I assume it wouldn't be.
I assume it'd be this season. I think.
Yeah,
because we have had a lot of goal scorers this season, haven't we, from all over the pitch? I think at one point, I forget when it was, but I think it was a few months ago, everyone was saying, I remember a commentator saying something like, oh, Newcastle have had so many different goal scorers, and obviously Lewis Hall would then be added to that list, scoring a Premier League goal.
I certainly think we probably are, to be honest. Finger in the air, I think we probably are, because I mean, how many goal scorers we've had? We've had a lot this season, certainly. I think it's got to be, I would say Newcastle have probably just edged it over United. And it's a shame you can't get a bonus point for that, isn't it, really? That would be the old rugby bonuses if we got one for having the most goal scorers.
Well, Pete and Keith, I've got a couple of quick fire ones for you there. So Alan Thompson says, our next goalkeeper's Ramsdale, lads, next season. Thoughts? And Craig Lee also says, Marmaduke, I think he means Mamadashvili, or whatever he's called, is the keeper I'd buy. So quick answer from you both. Mamadashvili or Ramsdale?
Go on, Keith.
I quite like Ramsdale. I thought he was treated harshly at Arsenal with what Arteta was doing. It was a strange decision at the time, and I think it did affect Ramsdale a bit. And I like the form that he displayed last year.
So would you say Ramsdale? Would that be your choice, Keith?
Yeah.
Pete?
I'm going Mamadashvili. I've watched him quite a bit. I really like him as a goalkeeper. I think the fact that he's only 22, the fact that he's 6'6", the fact that he's really good in the air, commanding, the fact that he's a good shot stopper, decent with his feet, not amazing, but decent. He's almost like a better version of Pope, and Pope is a very good goalkeeper. So for me, he at 22 years old, he's the perfect fit for us long term. However, Ramsdale is a player that Eddie Howe has already signed at Bournemouth. He knows him. He's worked with him. They clearly get on well. And whilst we've been on the show, Luke Edwards has put a story out. So Newcastle are interested in Ramsdale and will make a move this summer. Deal not agreed, but hopefully it will be. And so that makes me feel like that is the go-to guy. He is the go-to guy. I know there's been rumors of Ramsdale coming out saying news to me on his socials, but for me, I expect him to do that. His agent's going to want many people coming in for him, which raises the fee for the club, which raises the amount of money he can command for wages and agent fees and all the rest of it. That for me is par for the course. But I do expect Newcastle United to go in for a goalkeeper, and I do think that Aaron Ramsdale will be Eddie Howe's first choice. So
there's a lot to like about Ramsdale. I mean, obviously I'm Team Raya, being Brentford, but there is a lot to like about Ramsdale, and I do think he's been really badly treated by Arteta. I think it should have been made clear at the beginning of the season that Raya was coming in at number one, and he should have been given the option to leave then if he wanted to, or to fight for his place. And I think it's been a horrible situation for him that he's handled really well, and I think he'd be an asset to any team.
See, I'm the other way. I'm the other way with this situation, because we had a situation last summer with Martin Dubravka. Martin Dubravka asked for the move to
Man United.
Man United. He went to Man United, and I was frustrated with that situation because I remember saying in the summer, I was like, as a club, we should want our to have a biggest squad of good players open and available to us as possible. And I mentioned last summer, we should make him stay. He might want to leave, but we should be saying, no, we want you part of the squad. You are staying. You're contracted to the club. You are here to stay. And he went off and scurried off to Man United, barely got a kick, and then scurried back to us in January. And I didn't like that. And I've, to be fair, I've held that against Martin Dubravka ever since he's come back to the club. And I don't rate him as a goalkeeper. I don't like. I think he's dropped off since he left the club. But I just think, for me, I just think the club should be able to hold on to their better players for as long as they possibly can, and they should toe the line with the manager and what the manager wants. So yeah, it's not been ideal for Aaron Ramsdale, but and I think the difference is I think Aaron Ramsdale handled it really
I think he's handled it really well. I think it's a really difficult situation.
Yeah.
My issue is that I think it put undue pressure on both of them. But I don't think it's so much that. I think that Arteta came out with this joint number ones, I might bring one of them on at half time and all this nonsense, because he didn't seemingly publicly have the guts to say, no, Raya is my number one. I think so. Raya suffered a great deal of pressure that he shouldn't have been put under when he initially went there, when he was going to suffer huge pressure anyway, replacing a popular goalkeeper. And I think he put a huge amount of pressure on Ramsdale. I don't think Arteta handled it well. It's my point, really, more than anything else. I think he could have handled it a lot better than he did. That was more beneficial to both players. But I like Aaron Ramsdale a lot. I think he'd be a good signing.
Just making it clear.
Yeah,
you are number 2. He's number 1.
Yeah.
This is why I brought him in, making it absolutely clear from the beginning. I get you, and I agree with you.
I think it'd be interesting as well to see if it's weakened Arsenal's hand. I wonder how the board felt about it, because now, if Aaron Ramsdale is to leave, when Newcastle come to the negotiating table, it'll be interesting to see if Arsenal are like, oh yeah, we want 40 million for him, and then Newcastle would be thinking, well, sorry, you brought in a new goalkeeper, and you clearly don't want him there. Without physically saying it, it's clear that Aaron Ramsdale doesn't have a future at Arsenal unless he wants to be a number 2. And Arsenal have seemingly made it abundantly clear to Aaron Ramsdale that, if an offer comes in, they'll get rid. But surely that weakens the club's hands, because Arsenal can't demand top 3 for him. They just can't.
There's rumours that he could be available for as little as 15 million.
Wow. That's a bargain, isn't it?
Anywhere between 50. I don't know whether that's true. It's just what I've heard. Social media, of course, we can't believe everything that's being said, but anywhere between 15 and 20 million, bearing in mind Arsenal played 25, 30 million for him. Like, if you're getting a goalkeeper of his ability, which for me is on a par with Nick Pope at that sort of price, you got to take that. You're not getting Mamardashvili for that sort of price. You're paying a hell of a lot more for that. So it's interesting. It's really, really interesting. On Loaded Mag NUFC, we're going to be talking about it a lot. Full loaded transfer shows. We're going to be talking about it a hell of a lot. So everyone watching, you can tune in for that. Sorry, Chris.
No. So it's the last question, and I've saved this one on purpose. And this was one of the first comments that got put on the show tonight. And I'm really interested to hear Ali's thoughts. So Ali first, and then I'm going to ask Keith from Pete. So Magpies Unite says, "Hi all. Seen reports that Man City have made a formal approach to the club for Bruno Guimaraes. Release clause activation scenario. Sad that it means we can spend. I think he means sad, but it means we can spend money on the whole team." Now, the question I want to ask you, Ali, is: do you think, from what you know from the outside looking in, do you think that Bruno Guimaraes would be tempted by Man City, and do you think that ultimately Bruno Guimaraes will leave Newcastle to join Man City? Well, Pep Guardiola's Man City. That's going to be my little push in there.
I think any player is going to be tempted by Man City at this point, aren't they? And I think any player, if Man City comes in for them, is in all likelihood, if there's especially the release clause, is going to go at this point, because the possibility of winning things is so high. I mean, it's really difficult to see how he doesn't go. If I'm honest, I think it's really difficult to see how he doesn't go. If the offer is there and the release clause is there, I think it's really difficult to see how he doesn't go, if I'm honest. And, you know, much as we all hate to lose great players, you know, it does, as he says, as you know, it does give you the money to spend on the rest of the team, doesn't it?
Yeah. Pete, I'm going to go to you next. I'm going to add a little one to this question. So, does Bruno Guimaraes go to Manchester City, yes or no? And also, is he going to be paired up with one of his best friends, Lucas Paqueta, at the same time at Man City next summer? Or this summer?
Big double question.
She's turning into a Man City podcast.
Yeah. Oh my God. No. Definitely not. In all honesty, if Man City come in for Bruno Guimaraes, he goes to Man City. It's the reality that we don't want. No Newcastle United fan wants Bruno Guimaraes to leave the club. As much as we would like the money to reinvest and build the squad how we want, we don't want him to go, because he epitomizes everything that Newcastle United is about: the passion, the desire, the motivation to want to be the best. His frustration on Saturday against Brighton when we didn't win, his frustrations of not getting the 3 points. People read into that, oh, it's his last game, he's going to leave. No, he was just frustrated, because that's how determined he is. He is everything we want a Newcastle United player to be. And I'll be absolutely distraught to lose him. However, as you mentioned, Ali, the law of trophies, the law of playing for in my opinion, the best team in Europe right now, even better than Real Madrid. Even though they're not in the Champions League final, Man City are an absolutely outstanding football team, and you can't deny a player of that. You can't. Like, if Man City come in, you go. And there's a couple of things to this, and sorry to kind of go on this, but I think it's really, really important. One thing that I've noticed for over a year now is that Bruno Guimaraes and Pep Guardiola have got a relationship. They have. Every game that Newcastle United play against Man City, Pep Guardiola, in every press conference before a Man City Newcastle United game, finds a way, even when not asked, to talk about Bruno Guimaraes. He talks about him all the time and talks about him so positively. Bruno Guimaraes always gets asked about Pep Guardiola and just lavishes him with positive thoughts and opinions and feelings. They always make a beeline for each other after every game, regardless. Always an embrace there. And for me, that relationship means that there's something there. So it's an easy move for him, because he clearly appreciates, and rightly so, Pep Guardiola as a fantastic manager. So for me, it's a no-brainer. The second thing is, and I had an interesting conversation with a Man City fan today who, in the nose, regardless of that, he said he's quite close to the club. There's rumours of Bruno Guimaraes having even agreed personal terms with Man City already. However, the one thing he did say is that regardless of him agreeing personal terms with Man City, he is still torn on the move and is still 50-50 on whether he wants to leave or not. And it's the reasons that we've talked about on Loaded Mag NUFC. He is idolised at Newcastle United. He is the main man. We love him absolutely. And there's no other club in world football that will love Bruno Guimaraes the way that we do. There is no other club. No. He might win trophies and win everything he could possibly win at every other club, but he won't be the guy that he is at Newcastle United. And that's sometimes a pull to leave and move away from. When you've been lauded as the guy, and the people that the whole city love him, absolutely adore him. And that's the big thing. And I think that will be a big pull for him. The one thing I'll say to you before we move on to Keith is, if we don't get European football, he's gone. He has to play European football of some form this season. And so if we don't get European football, if we don't get at least a draw or a win, or we don't equal or better Man United's score on Sunday, he will leave Newcastle United. And this is why it's such a big game for Newcastle United on Sunday, because it could be the difference between Bruno Guimaraes leaving the club and maybe persuading himself to stay at Newcastle United. And that's why it's so crucial.
Keith?
Yeah, there's some really good points being made there all around. Man City have cemented themselves into the position that Man United were 20 years ago and where Liverpool were 15 years before that. The team to go to in the UK if you wanted to win things. And that is an incredibly difficult thing to turn down once that's on the table. I think the only other club really worldwide where you had to get turned would be Real Madrid for sure. And who can blame Bruno if that's on the table, really? Because he there's not many that would stay at the club when Man City come knocking, or an equivalent of Man City in that time. Shearer did it back in the day. Shearer was a Geordie, and all he wanted to do was play for Newcastle United for as long as he could and do as well as he could and put Newcastle in a position to win trophies. Bruno ain't, as much as he's became an honorary Geordie, is not a Geordie, and always wanted to be successful as he could, really. And it's an interesting one. And what I would ask here is Europe, a Conference League football going to be enough to keep Bruno? Especially if these claims are legit and they're on the table and claims have been made and that relationship's there. Is Europe a Conference League Thursday night football enough? I don't think it is. And maybe in the last, we're seeing this sort of play out in the back, these little murmurings affecting the dressing room a bit in the last couple of games. That game on Saturday and that game against United the other day.
And do you know what? And do you know what, Keith? This is exactly, I think, why I've been so despondent and so disappointed and so annoyed at that Man United game. Because if we'd have beat Man United, we'd be sitting on Europa Conference right now, and we'd be looking at this game coming up at the weekend and thinking, right, let's go and win, let's go and get Europa League. And the fact that we need to, as Pete rightly said, equal or better Man United's results just to get Conference League, because I think Europa League's gone, because I don't think Chelsea lose at home to Bournemouth at the weekend. So I've kind of wrote off the Europa League already. And I think if we had Europa League, I agree with you, Keith. I think if we had Europa League, I think our position of keeping Bruno would be stronger. The fact now that the best case scenario is Europa Conference, good for Newcastle, good that we're in Europe if we manage to get it. But is the likes of Bruno and Isak going to be looking at that and thinking, oh, Europa Conference? I'm not so sure. I'm really, really not. And as Pete rightly said as well, towards the end of what he was saying, if we get no Europe at all, that really puts us in a precarious situation. It really, really does.
Can I just say something? I just want to say something here, because I think it's really interesting, the conversation you have. I think, and this is in no way disrespectful at all, but I think as football fans, we project our feelings onto a player and how we feel about the club and how we want that player and hope that player feels about our club onto that player. And I think with footballers, ambition always trumps everything. I think we had not a similar situation, but a situation with Eriksen where we all transmitted what we felt about him and what we felt about the club and what we wanted him to feel about the club onto him, and sort of convinced ourselves he was going to stay because he loved the club and loved living in the area. Man United coming on, even with all their problems at that point, for him was sort of like, it's a no-brainer. And I think as football fans, we sometimes, and I'm just being, because I'm in a situation where I could take a step back from where you guys are, and I'm just hearing and hearing all the same arguments and all the same sort of comments that we were making a couple of years ago. And I just think, for footballers, I think as fans, sometimes we forget, for 99% of them, it is their job. And if somebody comes along with a better job offer, like with any of us, we go. And that's just how it is. And it sounds really cold-hearted because I'm outside of it, and I can almost feel your pain in the situation, and how much we as fans who sort of live and breathe our clubs want our players to live and breathe our clubs to the same extent. And They very, very rarely do. And I would, like I said, I would be very surprised if he doesn't go, if Newcastle are amenable to him going.
I've got my blinkers on. I've got
Yeah,
my blinkers on.
well, absolutely. And I completely get why.
And I'm going to
completely get
say
why.
this. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to go kind of the opposite way to Keith and Chris. If we get Europa Conference League, which is what we're likely to get now, because Chelsea are likely to beat Bournemouth at home, they're going to get Europa League. I'm convinced Man United are going to get absolutely smashed by Man City in the FA Cup, which means 7th place does get Europa Conference League. I do believe Europa Conference could well keep Bruno Guimaraes for one more year. And the reason being is because unlike Aston Villa, who came very close but didn't quite get there, I genuinely think Bruno might well give it one more year, because he might feel, and the club might feel, that with investment this summer, we could go and win the competition. And winning a trophy for Newcastle United with a club that he feels so strongly about before he then leaves would be like his kind of like shining moment. He'd probably get a statue off the back of that.
We talked about statues as well.
Yeah, he'd probably get a statue. I'm genuinely saying this. Like, he'd probably get, if he was to lead Newcastle United and be a figural point in Newcastle United winning their first trophy in 60, 70 years, like that would be statue level moment. Not just for Eddie Howe, but for the likes of Bruno Guimaraes and many other players. And I think him leaving that summer, knowing that he's brought a trophy home, a major trophy home for Newcastle United, could be the kicker that keeps him at the club for another season.
And another kicker, sorry, Keith, just to jump in, and Craig Lee makes a great point, and I know we could probably talk another half an hour about this, but I'm just going to throw it in there, is Craig Lee says Pep leaves City at the end of next season 100%, and anyone going there should know that. And that is true. These charges aren't going anywhere, are they? These charges aren't going anywhere.
They'll catch up with them sooner or later.
Well, there's rumours. There's rumours in the last 24 hours, people mentioning that next season's going to be Pep Guardiola's last, and that he will leave in 2025. You know, like you said, Chris, it's a great point. If you're going to Man City, you're going to want to know or have guarantees that that manager is going to be there for at least a couple of more seasons. And so he's going there for Pep Guardiola. He wants to know that he's going to still be there in a couple of years' time if he's going to commit that time to the club. So, interesting point. Yeah, definitely.
Go on, Keith.
A couple of things. First thing, that was a great script idea, Pete. I love that. That's almost real life goal, isn't it? Really.
It's a prayer log. It's a prayer log.
Trilogy of series. I can just see a 3-part series where Bruno then goes to Man City and wins the Premier League, and then goes to Real Madrid and wins the Champions League.
Oh, after he's won as a trophy. I'm happy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal finish of the first film of the goal series. You know, Newcastle's first the Europa Conference League. But and a great point there I raised again about Pep Guardiola. It's interesting, but again, at some point, Pep will leave City, and I don't know how this thing's going to end, really, in terms of, I think personally they'll brush these things under the table. I don't think they want the headache. I think they'll probably draw a line under the sand and say, yeah, you did the wrong thing back then before we had all of these rules. Don't do it again. And I think it'll just get brushed under the table. And lastly, to the question earlier about the Newcastle goals versus Man United goals for players, Newcastle do have the record over Man United this season. 20 different players have scored for Newcastle this season compared to 17 different players for Man United this season.
Keith rounds it off with a stat. We knew that was going to happen. Brilliant, Keith.
Absolutely. Love it. Well, we could have talked about that question alone all day, and it's a great conversation. I'm sure we're going to continue it over the course of the season. But Ali, great to have your opinions on that as a fan sitting on the outside of that. Brilliant stuff. Let's get to predictions before we see out the show. Chris, we'll work it round. We'll start with you round. Well, maybe not all the way around, because we'll come to me first before we go to Keith last. Chris, what are your predictions for Sunday? Are we going to get European football? Are we going to get the 3 points? What are you thinking?
I'm gonna do something I haven't done a lot this season. I'm gonna predict a loss. I think Brentford are going to win 2-1. However, I do think we will get European football because I also believe Man United will lose. That's my prediction. I think we'll get European football, but I think we will lose to Brentford. I think it'll be 2-1 Brentford.
Saving grace. European football still in the bag, but we don't get the points. Ali, we're going to come to you as the away fan. What are you thinking? Are you confident for this game on Sunday?
You've got something riding on it. We haven't. But it is our last home game of the season, and I think Thomas and the boys will want to go out on a high after a difficult season. I think there's goals in it. I'm going to go 2-2.
Ooh, Desmond, absolute Desmond. Okay, interesting. I'm going to go Newcastle 2-1. I just think because we need to win, I think we're going to get we're good at scoring goals. Like, we're not good at keeping them out. So I do think we're going to concede. So I'm going to go 2-1, tight game. FX Pro has mentioned it as well. But I think 2-1 win. Newcastle United will secure European football for us, which then leads to the main man, 00 Stato, Splinter, as some people call him in certain parts, Dr. Doom, because he always predicts potentially a negative result for Newcastle United. But Keith, what are you thinking for this game, the final game of the season? Are we getting European football? What are your thoughts?
Well, I can see two outcomes. And it's a caveat that I do caveat that.
This is normal.
He does this.
Every week sitting on the fence, isn't it?
Every week I see two outcomes. So I agree then with some of the points that have been made earlier. Eventually, Brentford have got to beat Newcastle. And if Newcastle turn up as they have been, because they're not playing well at all in the last few games, they've tapered off a little bit. It's went a bit flat. There's clearly some issues there a little bit along the way. And if that's the case, if they go into this not wanting Europe or Conference League football, then I've got a bad feeling it's going to be that. However, for fun, the other game I've thought I put in here, and I just want to say this, I think there'll be goals either way. They'll be flying in, and
calling it.
I've got a feeling it'll be this.
Oh,
wow.
I think there could be a hat trick, and it'll not be a Newcastle player. It'll be Ivan Toney getting the hat trick.
Oh no, that would be something, wouldn't it? In his last game, wow. That would be something.
Ooh.
That would be a turn up for the books as well at the moment.
Let's make it an entertaining end to the season. 3-3.
But let's add an addition on to that, Keith. You're saying Man United are going to lose on Sunday, right?
With one eye on the cup final. Yeah.
You guys have got to control what you can control and stop worrying about Man United.
Well, we hope we could take control of the situation. But we thought we were going to against Brighton. We thought we were going to against Man United. We didn't. So now we've got to we've got to look to the stars and hope that Man United lose away at Brighton, which you kind of expect.
It would be Newcastle, though, wouldn't it? To not get Europe or Conference League football, or maybe be in for one game, and then obviously the cup final happens, and then lose out, and then have all the extra stress about, oh, Bruno's going to go, but we haven't got Europe next year. That would be so Newcastle.
It would be us. Yeah,
absolutely. But there's your predictions, guys. The last prediction of the Premier League season. It is in the bank. It's been a fantastic show. Really, really appreciate everyone in the chat for their comments, their questions, everything over the course of this show. Massive thanks to Ali from
Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Always a pleasure. Not your first time on the show. Hopefully won't be your last. We'll definitely look to get you back on next season. Keith, round of applause for all your stats over the course of the season. Absolutely a huge part of what Loaded Mag NUFC do. And of course, myself and Chris. Chris, regardless of work, regardless of getting back on trains and various other things, you're always there, and massively appreciate it. Absolute legend, mate, and great opinions as ever.
And I'm going to have to interrupt here, Pete. We're having a big love-in now. Pete puts loads of efforts into the away days, gets fantastic guests on, and does it all for loads of mag. And honestly, I know all the guests appreciate it. Keith appreciates it. But yeah, massive shout out to Pete, because we wouldn't have away days if it wasn't for him. And really looking forward to next season.
Definitely. No, I appreciate that. And we will be back with more away days, that's for sure. We're not going anywhere. Again, thank you to everybody. And look, we're going to give a little bit of a shout out to our sponsors just before we go. The Radiator Shed, Russ and the team, massive thank you for your support over the course of the season. Looking forward to more in the new season, 24-25. I'm not going to put the little radiators on because I'm going to get a lot of stick for that. I'm going to show you just a little small sample of radiators. I'll go on then, the little radiators there. Don't ask Ali, because
they're very cute.
Long conversation on those radiators. But Russ with the main man, Callum Wilson. Could it be his last game on Sunday? Maybe so. But obviously supporting all things Radiator Shed. Huge thank you to the Installworks Northeast Partnership. Thank you for your support and everything. And they've even got Loaded Mag on their van. Huge support for H2O Bathroom Design Co. Thank you for everything that you've done this season. Make sure you get down as we give Ali a shower there, as we can see, with their support and some fantastic bathrooms, as you can see on the pictures there. Brilliant support. And let's not forget our brand new sponsor, Manscaped. If you've not seen partnership with Manscaped, fantastic items, lots of items as well in our prize draws. Is more to come over the weeks and months with regards to Manscaped, and lots of prizes to be won with regards to that. So get involved and become a Loaded Ultra. That is for sure. Right. Coming towards the end of the show, we're going to sign off right now. Praying for the win.
Brentford win, yeah.
Oh, well, for you, definitely, but definitely not for us. We absolutely need the win. But look, Brentford will be fine. Brentford will be back up there challenging next season. I'm absolutely sure of it. But this is it. As always, we do love playing away. Chris, take us home.
Ali, how'd you like that?
It was great. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Have a good evening.
Yeah.